Or we could walk around the world, or Kashmir and India and Pakistan, where we faced a very serious nuclear escalation. So what I'm hearing outside of forums like this privately is, thank you for American leadership. America has to lead. If we have to have more focused plurilateral or focused multilateral organizations to do so, I think that should be perfectly acceptable. You have to ask yourself, why were we 18 months ago in so many active wars around the world? And I think it's a fair question for the president to say, why hasn't the UN been able to resolve issues like a border dispute between Cambodia and Thailand, or Azerbaijan, Armenia, or we could walk around the world, or Kashmir and India and Pakistan, where we faced a very serious nuclear escalation.
And we are wondering what the United States, where it wants to go and what it wants to do. And is it a world of might is right, great power politics, unconstrained? Because, and this is the question to you, does the president believe in a multilateral system where there are rules that would constrain the United States or not?
NATO is stronger because of our leadership and push for the reforms that were badly needed, namely the contributions. The UN will be stronger at the end of this process. The status quo was unsustainable and not working in places like Gaza or Azerbaijan, Armenia. You have to ask yourself, why were we 18 months ago in so many active wars around the world? And I think it's a fair question for the president to say, why hasn't the UN been able to resolve issues like a border dispute between Cambodia and Thailand, or Azerbaijan, Armenia, or we could walk around the world, or Kashmir and India and Pakistan, where we faced a very serious nuclear escalation. So what I'm hearing outside of forums like this privately is, thank you for American leadership. America has to lead. If we have to have more focused plurilateral or focused multilateral organizations to do so, I think that should be perfectly acceptable if we're getting the results that results in peace and security.
Yeah. Okay, thank you. I think that was actually very clear. Questions? Lady here in the fourth row. If you could identify yourself and keep it very brief.
Thank you. My name is Amal Modelleli. I'm a researcher at Princeton University. I have two quick questions. Mr. Waltz, it's good to see you. And
thank you.
Thanks to your efforts, Resolution 2803 was passed and the Board of Peace was established. But the problem that people are having is that the charter of the Board of Peace that came out from the White House later on, it does not mention Gaza, and it talks about solving global problems. Doesn't this go beyond the mandate that you got from the United Nations? Can I have a second question?
Why don't we just stick with that one, because there are a lot of hands went up, and it's a very focused question.
Look, the Board of Peace is absolutely focused on Gaza. I think you will see that in the meeting next week. But in the formation and in its founding documents, the team wanted to leave flexibility to be able to tackle other problems if asked. Again, this was an outcropping of what I think history will look back on, which was an absolutely historic meeting where the president convened the countries of the region and the Muslim majority nations, namely Pakistan, Turkey, and Indonesia. Just a few weeks prior, we had the strike on downtown Doha from the Israelis. There was a lot of concern that would the diplomatic momentum continue. And just a few months later, we had Sharm el-Sheikh with Abu Mazen from the Palestinians shaking the president's hand in the historic speech at the Knesset. The hostages released, the ceasefire in place, the humanitarian aid flowing, and now an international security force moving. So again, let's focus on the results in Gaza that we're seeing as a result of this action.
Thank you. Gentleman there in the second row.
I'm Mustafa Barghouti from Palestine. I have this question. We are held accountable as Palestinians 3 times a day. Israel is violating the ceasefire already 1,500 times. Who's going to hold Israel accountable? And the second question, how can we call this a board of peace if it has the Prime Minister of Israel in it, but not a single Palestinian in it?
Thank you. Kaya, would you like to answer that? And then maybe Prince Faisal would like to add something.
But this is exactly the point of accountability that I'm saying, that nobody should be above the law. I mean, if we have agreed international rules, then, you know, if you are breaching those rules, then you should also be held accountable, whoever you are.
Prince Faisal?
Certainly, I completely agree. And obviously, it's not a ceasefire if the guns haven't ceased. I think where I'm most concerned is even if the killing has stopped, the dying hasn't. So aid access is still an issue, and I know that the US team is working on that every day. So one of the reasons we're remaining engaged is just because of that, is we do see, it doesn't always translate, unfortunately, into what's happening on the ground, but we do see a consistent engagement on trying to get these things addressed, whether it's the ceasefire violations, whether it's the issue of opening up aid access. And of course, when the resolution was adopted, it was very clear. It included language that addressed the right of the Palestinians for self-determination. So certainly, I know from the Kingdom's perspective, many of those countries that signed on to the resolution, many of those countries that have agreed to join the board, we see this very much as one step on the road to Palestinian self-determination. Obviously, the priority needs to be to stop the dying in Gaza, stabilize that situation, to start the rebuilding, to build the reassurance that there is no longer a threat from Gaza to its neighbors, and then move that to addressing the issue of Palestinian rights. And with that, you know, we believe very strongly that if we don't address holistically the rights of the Palestinians, including the Palestinians of the West Bank, and here this is very critical, the unity of Gaza and the West Bank needs to be maintained. And that can only happen if we stabilize the situation in Gaza, because there's no linkage with a space that is currently in chaos. So we have a lot more to do. You know, we have a meeting coming up, and I'm sure we'll hear more about what's being done. It's a daily effort to stabilize the situation. All the hostages are out now, so now the focus needs to be getting the lives of the Palestinians in Gaza into a much, much better place, and allowing that then to be the opening towards a pathway towards the Palestinians and the Israelis can live together side by side in peace and in harmony.
And I just would add very quickly, we've had over 4,000 trucks per week moving now since the Sharm el-Sheikh. Number one, it's not enough, but it is exponentially more than it was. And as the minister pointed out, there was language in the peace plan that is now in the Security Council resolution, post-reform towards Palestinian self-determination, and no occupation, no annexation of Gaza, which again, I would argue forcefully that only President Trump could bring all sides, including the Israelis, to the table to get this far. A long way to go, but we are far better than where we were in September of last year.
Thank you. There are a lot of hands going up. Question here, very briefly.
Very briefly. Katarzyna Pisarska, I'm the chair of the Warsaw Security Forum, Poland. My question to you, Ambassador Waltz, just an honest reply, please. Does America...
You have it pretty straightforward and honest so far.
Does America need a rules-based order? And if so, what are you willing to also sacrifice, because you have been backing this world order for years and years. And thanks to the United States of America, many of us, including Poland, has benefited immensely. And what we're seeing now is a withdrawal. That's an honest, I think, assessment of many of us. And we just ask ourselves, are you willing to fight with us, the Europeans and others, for this world order? And the same question really to Kaja Kallas. Do you feel that the Europeans are willing to really fight for this order?
Thank you.
And I would follow your question, are the Europeans willing and able to take the tough financial steps necessary? I'm a recovering politician myself. I know how tough those votes are when you have a social social support system. But look, to answer your question directly, absolutely. The American people have underwritten with their hard-earned dollar the global multilateral rules-based order since World War II. However, with 37 trillion in debt and counting, the massive debt load that the Western world is facing, I think it is fair on their behalf to ask 450 million Europeans with the same size economy as the United States to be more self-sustaining in their own defense. And it astounds me why that is so controversial I mean, it is...
Ambassador, I think it's not.
It's a fair question. When I go to people in Indiana and Georgia and North Florida that I represented, and it is their money paying more than 180 countries combined into the UN system, it's fair to say, yes, I have to look at them honestly and say it's being well spent, and it's not.
Absolutely. And indeed, I think as Chancellor Merz made very clear, the Europeans have belatedly got the message. And there is a recognition that, defense spending has gone up and is going to go up further. Europe needs to get his act together, and I'm going to come to Kaja Kallas again. There's an absolute, that was very clear in Chancellor.
But it wasn't clear in 2014. Why not?
It was. It took. We're
acting as though things were coming unglued now. It's been coming unglued for 10 years, and no one was responding in an effective way. Now we're asking more forcefully.
Yes.
And I think we're seeing a good result as a result of the 5%.
That was being asked from the audience was, if the Europeans are responding now, do you still believe in multilateralism in this order? Do you still believe in it? Or, as Chancellor Merz said, he said, and I just wrote it down, even the US is reaching the limits of its own power if it goes alone. Do you agree with him that the US could not go alone?
I mean, I'm looking at the grouping I just discussed of our Gulf Arab allies. I'm looking at the Abraham Accords. I'm looking at the fact that the president didn't need to take on Azerbaijan, Armenia, and he did. He didn't need to take on Pakistan and India, and he did. And we're asking the rest of the world to be there with us in a fair way financially. Because there is a cost to the status quo, and the status quo was not sustainable anymore. And that's, I think, on behalf of our constituents, a fair question to ask.